Let me straight away go to Mr. Azad sir. I went through the petition. There were a number of points which were raised. For example, no announcement was made, water cannons were not used, etc., etc. I want to know from you, someone who has served on the other side of the fence in securing India from terrorists, securing India's border, from VVIP security, fighting Naxals in Madhya Pradesh. Why have you gone to the court on the issue of pellet guns?
I think what happened on July 20th, 2026 was extremely disturbing and depressing. The violence which was unleashed from both sides was extremely unfortunate. And inevitably it happens in all the protests. First, the criminal elements get in, the police is stoned, police reacts, there are unprofessional acts also by the police. And the worst thing what happens is, Kartike, which is loved by both sides, the ruling party and the opposition, is that the main issue is forgotten, that is of neat reforms, and the whole debate turns to police barbarity. The question is that, of course, and I have fought for this, that those who have come on CCTVs destroying public property, attacking the police, must be brought to book and prosecuted. But at the same time, also the unprofessional acts by the police should also be judged, and judged in a very, very fair manner. As far as the use of pellet guns is concerned, I'm convinced, after seeing the damage, injuries, after seeing the past history, even in J&K that you were talking about, where 6,500 people were injured, some of them lost their eye, and in fact, a team from AIIMS had flown. My elder brother was the chief of the eye in AIIMS, and he used to tell me what exactly the damages were there like. The question is that despite the fact that pellet guns have not been banned, after Jammu and Kashmir, there was an expert committee in 2016, which sort of laid down and gave its recommendation. The MHA developed a standard operating protocol, and as you said, it was to be used as the second last resort. The question is that when you have a graded response, when you have a series of other usage of weapons, so-called, whether it's water cannon, lathi charge, tear gas smoke, chili spray, etc., etc. Why do you use pellet guns? I'm against for one reason. The reason is that the disproportionate damage it inflicts on the body and mind is much, much more than the clear success you're looking at, crowd dispersal or crowd management. And that's why the first thing which I've said is there's no need for a pellet gun in a democracy. For the simple reason, the technical point now, that when you fire a pellet gun, it goes into an arc. It doesn't hit a pinpointed target, but these metallic shells, they fly off. It's like a cloud of metal burst. And so it can never be accurate. So even when you're firing, we are firing below the waist to maintain the accuracy that the damage is least. In the case of pellet guns, it's a very, very serious damage. And that is why the second point of ours is that the compensation should be also studied very, very carefully, in the sense it should be for life, because the damage has been for life. It has been a very, very disturbing experience for me. And that's one of the reasons why I approached Vrinda Grover, one of the eminent lawyers, to file this writ petition in Supreme Court.
Okay. Opening comments from Major Amit Bansal in context of pellet guns.
Thank you, Kartike.
And
I would just like to mention, thank you, Kartike. I just like to mention a few things. So a lot of debate is going on in the country about the pellet guns, but I would like to ask them first. First of all, see, police is not the one who's using the pellet guns. There is a specialized force which is geared up, which is trained to control the riots, and that is Rapid Action Force. They are the ones who are equipped with pellet guns. Number two, it is not about launching a pellet gun on a protest. It is launching a pellet gun on a violent mob which has gone violent beyond the limits, which has started attacking the police people, which has started attacking the properties and all those things. We must remember the various cases, Kishanganj mob, where they lynched one of the SHO of Kishanganj. We must also remember the recent 2020 Delhi riots. Constable Ratan Lal was lynched alive by the mob. So, how do you stop these kind of violent attacks? Number three, do you adopt a lethal way or you adopt a non-lethal way? Certainly, people will debate about non-lethal ways. So, what all non-lethal ways will you take into consideration while controlling an super extra violent mob like this who's ready to kill the police people? So many police people have been injured. So it is not a peaceful protest on which the pellet guns have been used. And the fourth, rather than debating it here and maybe challenging in the court, why don't we come out with the specific non-lethal solutions to control these kind of mobs which are effective? We all know that since 2016 onwards, it was very difficult to control the mob in Jammu and Kashmir. And ever since Jammu and Kashmir, police has started using these pellet guns. They have been found to be damn effective against the violent mob. Damn effective against the violent mob. So, question is, if not the pellet guns, then what should we use against these kind of violent mobs? And here we are again. I am mentioning we are not talking about the protest. We are talking about the violent mob, violent, bloodthirsty mob. Over to you.
Okay. Mr. Chakma, your opening comments?
I think the issue is proportionality of the use of force. The question is, whatever force, lethal or non-lethal, you use, the critical question is the proportionality of force. And in this particular case, I think we know one particular fact, that is, there is nobody from the Home Minister to the DCP or even the sub-inspector or someone who maintains the, GD entry. They have the audacity to come and admit that they have actually authorized it. Therefore, there are leak information saying that there was a GD entry made and people leaking the information. So it basically means that the use of the pellet guns in this particular case was disproportionate. If it was proportionate, if it was required because of the mob violence and the mob was so violent that you had to use the pellet guns, then obviously the Home Minister of this country, the Commissioner of Police, the DCP or whoever has authorized it that come and justified that this is the reason why it is justified. So the very fact that there is no justification for it, it doesn't mean, it basically means that, this was disproportionate. So whenever you use, for example, the lethal arms, the CRPC and earlier and BNSS at this point of time categorically stipulates under what facts and circumstances bullets could be used. So I think what we have in mind, or the issue which we have to keep in mind, is that one, even if you use pellet guns, what kind of restrictions you will impose? Because if you do not use restrictions, then the damages which are lifelong obviously cannot be allowed. Now, in this particular case, I would say I think there is a need for whether it's absolute prohibitions or limited use. I think in India, the problem is, everything we justify in the name of national security. Now, the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, where students are for days, the protests have been taking place. I mean, if you take out a protest or equate the protest in Jantar Mantar, even if the crowd had turned violent, with the situation in Jammu and Kashmir where there is a mixture of possibly civilians and the armed groups or insurgents, then obviously you are missing the point. I think in a case like, say, Patna, case like Kolkata, or a city like Delhi, I mean, if you use just for one particular incident of violent confrontation, if you use pellet guns, then it's very unfortunate. The riots in Delhi were completely different from the protest which took place in Jantar Mantar. So we cannot generalize. And the problem is this generalization has become so normal that even if you use pellet guns in Kashmir, if you use pellet guns in Delhi, and if you do not use, despite mob violence in Manipur, then it becomes same. It is not the same. We cannot generalize it. And in your next show, you will have the question of Manipur. In Manipur, there are armed groups. They are the law enforcement agencies. They have to deposit their arms. They have to show their badges, etc. And they cannot use any firearms, even knowing fully well that The other sides are using sophisticated arms and weapons. You are using pellet guns there. I'm not suggesting that you have to use the pellet guns there. What I'm trying to say is that generalization of all security situation or putting everything in one basket, it's not going to helpful, and it doesn't at the end of the day comply with the requirements, which is essential for good governance, policing, etc. So that's my point.
Okay. Brijesh?
Well, I completely agree with Mr. Chakma. I don't agree that this crowd was a bloodthirsty crowd which was, hell-bent on creating such a nightmarish security scenario for Delhi police or RAF or others that it warranted the use of pellet gun. And if it was, then why is Delhi police lying from day one that no pellet gun was used? Then later on RAF chief admitted it was one of the exclusives which was carried out and has not been denied by RAF till now, been more than 3 days, that the force which was used by the central forces and all was much excessive than the situation required. It has been accepted. And if pellet gun was used and if it was a bloodthirsty mob, then why is the government, the Solicitor General saying in the Supreme Court that yes, so the students didn't do it. There are certain violent people, who had entered the crowd and they started pelting stone. Pelting stone at police is not a bloodthirsty situation. There can be, there can be scenario in which the situation can go completely awry, and I think police and RAFs and all are completely well equipped to deal with it. Are we trying to say that, that situation in most of the cities has come to such a pass that student protests require use of pellet guns? Then what stops them from shooting at head? Like what happened in Patna? In Bihar, where they made a mockery. When was the last time you imagined, a police guy took out an AK-47, started shooting at the protesting students? Then why don't you issue an order saying that, wherever we see a possible threat situation or security situation, why don't you shoot them all? Let it be done and over with. I mean, the response has to be proportionate. It cannot be jingoistic. And if you're so sure of that the crowd was bloodthirsty or the situation was getting out of the control, why do you only talk about policemen getting hurt? What about the other side? Nobody sympathized with or nobody tried to condone the fact that, that the police officers or the police personnel were assaulted. Nobody did. Not a single individual who came out and said, oh, it was great that the police guys got thrashed and all. But majority of the narrative which you look at it, it seems like, people are trying to justify the kind of assault that was there. I mean, look at that ADCP's photo where he's like, two young girls are sitting there and just they had the audacity to argue with the Maibabs of the system. He went out and slapped her. Just because the system is not strong enough to protect the dignity of an individual makes the IS officers completely different to the other sides. Then why don't you put it out saying that, I'm the Maibab and your system can go to hell?